Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to our podcast, where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. And each week, we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we're lucky enough to be joined by a remarkable guest, Aydin Mirzaee, who is CEO at Fellow AI. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic.
Amazing. Glad to hear it. So we want to thank you so much for spending your time with us. We know time is precious and we really appreciate that. But for anyone who doesn't know you or the company, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur for, I think, close to 2 decades now. So actually, my co-founders and I were, three startups together, 5 different products. And, I started out as an engineer, worked at Nortel Networks, for a few years. It was, I guess, height of dot-com bubble. This was one of those worth hundreds of billions of dollars type companies that now no longer exist, but it's an extraordinary experience. Love that I had the opportunity to do that. And then afterwards, so it's been startup since. Probably like the most notable one prior to Fellow was in the online survey space. We had a product called Fluid Surveys, and it was kind of this enterprisey survey tool. It was really awesome. So this was back in the day where if you had a drag and drop survey builder, this was like the most crazy thing that anyone had ever seen. And so that's what we had, and we built this really awesome interface and focus on enterprise, and it was a bootstrap company because we started in 2008, and great financial crisis, all of that. Nobody was investing in anything, so we just stayed bootstrapped and built a very profitable company that was doubling every year, and we grew to just about 100 people before selling to SurveyMonkey in a very successful acquisition. And we joined forces and grew with SurveyMonkey, and SurveyMonkey later on IPO'd. And so that was a super interesting journey. That is where we got the idea for Fellow. And so my co-founders and I left to solve this meeting problem. One of the things that we notice is that once organizations get bigger, I would say that this phenomenon starts when you're about 50 or so people. It's just meetings start to take over your company. And so that was a problem that we were looking to solve. And so all sorts of organizations started using us because they wanted to spend less time in meetings and wanted to create more organizational efficiencies. And so that's kind of where we started. And it was going really well, raised $30 million in capital. And over the last 2 years, ever since we all had the ChatGPT moment and AI became this thing that became the most important thing, we pivoted the company. And so we rebranded as Fellow AI, and we kind of rebuilt the product and the company to focus on building this AI first meeting agent, which is Fellow today. And so what Fellow does today is it's a super powerful product that helps you show up to meetings prepared, run the meetings, and then give you insanely great insights and summaries and notes from those meetings. But it doesn't stop there. It's very, I would say, agentic. So we update all of the different systems in your company, whether you have a CRM or you have a task management system or you have a wiki. You can, through Fellow, you can, take meeting content and update those systems. So say you have a customer call, you want to update, your HubSpot CRM, you can do that. You have tasks from this meeting, you want to update Asana, you can do that. So that's the kind of stuff that we do today. And it's super powerful. Like, we are just about to announce this new feature that really makes Fellow like your AI chief of staff. So, for example, one of the things that I recently got it to do was I said, hey, can you look at all of the meetings that I've had with my VP of marketing? And can you please create a super comprehensive performance review, highlighting all the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and everything else? And it did a fantastic job. It would have probably taken me like an entire week to do something like that. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of like the power of Fellow. So we started with meetings. It's a very AI first product, and a lot of companies adopt Fellow when they're looking to say like, hey, we need to get into this AI stuff. We need to bring more AI into all areas of the company. And as you can imagine, meetings are one of the largest surface areas in a company. So very often, Fellow is one of those first products that people bring in. And the focus for us, like the other thing that we think about is just being privacy first. So this is really important. I would say that we are the only privacy first AI note taker and assistant out there. And the reason for that is that this is the stuff that we started the company with. Even pre-AI, Fellow's first customer was Shopify, and Shopify was a 10,000 person company. And so we started with the enterprise in mind. So this privacy stuff is really important, and we can talk about it. But when you think about it, if you had, a single person go to every single meeting in your company and listen to everything said by everybody, I mean, you better trust that person, and that person better have really great judgment, right? In terms of what they put on the record and what they leave off, the ability to forget things if you need them to forget, all that kind of stuff. And so when enterprises start to think about these sorts of things, it becomes very important, but that is our bread and butter, right? So anybody who cares about privacy and security goes with Fellow. That's kind of the way that we look at it.
So why like focus specifically on meetings and like manager productivity specifically? Was it something from your own personal experience? You had a nightmare and you thought, this is why I want to do this.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Yeah, so what drew the interest in the beginning was, we had this bootstrap company. We grew it to about 100 people, but we had no organized structure. It was very scrappy. We didn't really have middle management. There was no board. There was no quarterly business reviews. There's no budget planning. By the way, like again, very profitable, doing really, really well. But we understood also that for this thing to really grow and, get to, you know, I don't know, 1,000 people one day, like you have to put this structure in place. And so when we got into SurveyMonkey and got to learn all the scaling mechanics of, how do you grow from 100 to, I mean, today they're, I don't know, maybe like 3,000 people or something. Like, how do you kind of go through all of that? It turns out that you just need very structured approaches and systems in place and cadences. And a lot of those things, happen through meetings. And so it just became like this super interesting phenomenon that we thought that there's a lot here and there's a lot that can be studied, and really good meetings can add tremendous value to organizations, and really bad ones can, quite frankly, like deteriorate the employee experience. And so it just became a very important thing. And when I kind of thought about it, I mean, that's kind of like what drew us in, and we thought, like, is there a way that, every organization in the world has meetings? Can we build a product that could add value to literally every working organization in the world? And so the premise of it, the how big of a surface area it was really exciting. And yeah, we had experienced a lot about it firsthand of, an organization with no meetings and one with a lot of meetings and everything in between. And it just became this thing that we thought we could really add to the productivity of the world if we could solve this problem for everyone.
That's quite ambitious, isn't it? Was there a time when you thought, you know what, yes, we're really onto something here? Was it something along your journey, or was it from the outset you just knew you were onto a winner?
I think the entrepreneurship mentality is that you do this to win, right? So I think there is this "we will do it until we win" kind of mentality from the outset, which I think is super important. You kind of have to have that point of view, right? This stuff is hard. If you don't kind of have that point of view going in, it's going to be hard to be successful. What I will say is that there's always that moment, right? So, in the early days, you get friends to use your product, right? And so then the way that you kind of look at it is, well, I can get them to start using it, but for them to keep using it, the product has to be really good. And so, we took that as a signal. And then, of course, you then get, the first customer that comes in. but someone that you knew referred them, so it doesn't really count. But then there's always that moment where you get someone that you don't know, you have no idea how they found out about you, they start using the product, and then they love it. That is, I mean, that's a special moment. I mean, that's a great fuel, I think, for any entrepreneur, for any founder, any product manager, right? That's the stuff that we live for. Because at the end of the day, we want to add value to the world, right? We want to build things that make people's work lives better. And so that's kind of the stuff in the beginning. But certainly it's the spread, it's the getting high NPS scores. It's seeing the validation in those ways that really makes a difference. And yeah, it's incredible. It's funny. One of the interesting things is that a lot of people, when they join Fellow, one of their first comments is, I've never worked at a company where the users love the product, like in the way that people love Fellow. And so that is, yeah, and credit goes to amazing product builders that we have at the company.
If you just put your sales hat on for a moment, like what kinds of teams or companies can really get the most out of Fellow?
Yeah, so
And you can't say anyone.
yeah, so it's interesting. So the first version, like pre AI, I would say I would have said, okay, larger teams, would have gotten more out of it. The new version of Fellow, again, like the AI focused version of Fellow, the reality is that we have, one person organizations, we have a lot of solopreneurs, and then we have, very large publicly traded companies and everything in between. But what I would say is, like, where we have I guess, like the most product market fit is organizations that actually care about, they want to capture everything, because capturing conversations is so valuable in this world that is very AI driven, right? LLMs are very powerful, but they get really useful when they have a lot of context. And this is why, everybody's repeating the phrase context is king, right? This is what we're talking about. If the LMs have the context, it can be extremely useful. So where's the most context generated in most organizations? It's in conversations, right? So there's conversations with your customers, but then there's also conversations like the internal ones. When you want to onboard a new employee, what do you typically do? Hey, come to all of the, meetings, follow these people around, spend some time with this person, so that through osmosis, you can gain this information. It's the same with AI. If that's how we train humans, you want the AIs to also get context in the same way. And so what happens is most of the context is generated in these conversations. And so part of what Fellow does is to help capture these things. But the key is you want the right context in there and the wrong context out, right? So if you're starting a discussion, and I'll paint you a scenario. So you and I are in a meeting, I'm talking about how Friday I went to this kegger and, all sorts of things happen. And then the third person joins the meeting, and then we both stay quiet and change the topic, right? But then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, the AI note taker was in the call during that conversation and is going to email all of this to everybody who was there. But with Fellow, you don't have to worry about that, because Fellow will just know and not include that in the conversation. I think that's pretty powerful, right?
Yeah.
So this is the kind of stuff that Fellow is really good at, because we know that context is king, but we also believe that privacy is important and control is important. And so for any organization that buys into that worldview, that we don't want, all seeing, all knowing surveillance devices everywhere, but what we want is we want full control and privacy. We want the benefits, and we don't want to, we don't want surveillance. And so that is what Fellow's kind of brand promise, and this is why we talk about being privacy first.
Like, it's an incredible feature and something that I actually would love to have like a meeting planner. Are there things, though, that maybe users aren't using, like maybe hidden gems where the user doesn't really understand what it's there for, or they're underutilizing?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is just the creativity. So some of these things are early in that, they're new things from Fellow, but they're super powerful, and even we use them internally, and our mind is blown. Yeah. So one interesting thing, for example, is I just had a town hall. I was mentioning to you that why I was a few minutes late. But during our town hall, we have these AI presentations, right? This is super important in our company culture. Everybody in the company has to do an AI presentation. Like it's part of the company culture. We have two every week, right? And so this week, one of the folks on our team, Tyler, shout out Tyler, did an amazing job, and so he showed a demo using Fellow, right? So and the demo was really cool. So when he started with the company, he had a bunch of meetings where people trained him some things, showed him some things, right? He had those kinds of conversations. Everything's on, he kept a bunch of these things through Fellow, and then he basically put them in a channel called QA. He's part of the QA team, QA onboarding. And then he asked Fellow, hey, can you look at all of these meetings and all these conversations, and can you please create a very detailed onboarding document such that I can literally put this into Confluence, which is our wiki, and so that any other person doesn't have to do these meetings, and they can just follow this onboarding plan, including a full checklist, and make it great, and bam, like all of a sudden we have this beautiful onboarding document in our wiki with a week by week plan of how to get started with checkboxes and everything, and it's just fantastic, right? I mean, this is the power, right? Like, this is not we don't advertise Fellow as hey, here's a product that is going to do your onboarding docs, but with creativity, you can do all these really, really cool things if you have access to them. And so that's just like one example. So I do think we're still at the stage where if you're creative and you have these ideas of what can I do with conversations, if I had all these conversations, what kinds of things could I do? What kind of things could I get Fellow to build for me? That's where it comes in. But over the course of time, we will work in a lot of this kind of stuff into workflows.
Do you have any like guardrails or design principles? Maybe not to prevent the AI from replacing managers, maybe augmenting managers. What's your kind of long-term approach to this?
I think it's my experience with AI so far is maybe a little bit of a contrary view, is that in most cases, AI will allow us to do things that we wouldn't have otherwise done, right? It's not necessarily like, I think when this stuff comes out, everybody's been thinking about, oh, think of all the cost savings because we can do this faster, cheaper, and we won't need people or this and that. So our experience inside of Fellow has been, completely the opposite. AI tools have just allowed us to be a better company and do things that we otherwise wouldn't have done. I'll give you this example. We have this philosophy at Fellow, which is prototype everything. And what that means is that prototypes are, as you can imagine, software, for example, is very useful. It's great to have a prototype. But the problem is, like, they take all this time, and they're great because everybody can get on the same page. You can experience it, but you often don't build prototypes because it just takes a bunch of time and it's not worth it for everything. But given what AI makes possible, now we have this philosophy of prototype everything. And so literally almost everything in the company before we build it, now we have a prototype. We get to play with it. Sometimes we get our users to play with it. Some who are, been really good at constantly giving Fellow feedback. And now we can shorten the feedback loop. And then we only build things once we're like pretty sure that this thing that we're about to do is really great. So this makes us a better company, makes us operate better. And it's because of AI. Another example recently, and I'm going to give a shout out to a company called Screen Studio. And so Screen Studio is really great. What it does is you record your screen, you're showcasing a product or presentation, and it does AI editing automatically for you, so that, for example, when you click on a button, it'll zoom in to that part, and the videos look fantastic. So in other words, you could literally sit back, press record, start showing something, and the video looks great. So what do you think the impacts of this were? Now, all of a sudden, we used to have maybe one person on the team creating this kind of stuff. Now we got licenses for everybody. And so now what that means is we just create a lot more like animated videos of our product. So our customer support team does it when they send it to customers. We have it in our documentation. Our marketing team does it. Heck, even our product team, when they're showcasing things, now they also use it too. So all of a sudden, just a thing that happens some of the time now happens all of the time because AI makes it easier. So this has really been my experience in that these tools just give everybody so much more power. We end up being so much more productive, and we end up doing the things that we would have never done. It would have been good to do those things, but we just never had the time. And now we do. So that's really been my experience. And so I think it's the same with Fellow. What you will get as a result. So when you bring Fellow into your company, our view, and actually, this is like our value prop, is that over the course of time, you will have less meetings. And the reason is that now, why would you ever attend a meeting that you're only going to say a sentence in? You can consume the content. By the way, the Fellow summaries are so good that you actually won't have to go. And as a matter of fact, sometimes we say that people who just don't go to the meeting and read the summaries are better off and know the content better than the person who attended. And the reason is that, like, you attend, you zone out, you get parts or you don't. The Fellow summaries like bring you the most important things. So you just focus on those. And then you can, in an asynchronous way, comment back and forth. Say you have a question, you want to add something. You can do that asynchronously on the meeting inside of Fellow. So what this means is like we just free up time. We make organization more productive. If there's a portion of our conversation that I think is really useful for other people, I can ask Fellow to create a memo, and then I can send that to that person, or I can create a clip of that part of the conversation and then send it to that person. So it just increases communication, increases efficiency, so that people have more time to do other things or add more value. So for us, it's more about that versus replacing people. That just like that concept, I think it's a fear mongering thing.
Yeah.
And it gets the headlines. And as you know, the way the news works is the scarier the things you say, the more clicks you get. But my experience has been, no, it's the opposite. We're just doing a lot more.
Now, meetings that I don't have to go to, they're my kind of meetings. So I think I would love your particular feature, being able to catch up on something like that. So I'm sold on that, definitely. We are coming towards the end of the time here. So I'm conscious of the time, but what's next for Fellow? What's the future hold for you? Maybe like 2 minutes max.
Yeah, sure. So the short view is like Fellow's building an AI chief of staff. And so, Fellow is going to be a digital employee you hire. It works at your company. It is going to make all of the meetings in your company productive. It's going to hold everybody accountable. Holding people accountable is really important and hard in organizations. Fellow will do that. It'll update all your systems of records, but it will bring you a lot of insights. So it will tell you, here are the bottlenecks in engineering. It will say, here are the opportunities that you really need to pay attention to. And by the way, here's some feedback on how you can be a better leader, as an example. And that's what you would expect as a chief of staff. Previously, only CEOs would have chiefs of staff. Fellow will be everyone's chief of staff.
There you go. Perfect way to end the show. Aydin, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today. What a fascinating platform that you have. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Really appreciate coming on this show. And one thing we wanted to do for all your listeners, for all the Bright founders, is we also wanted to make available for everybody who wants to give Fellow a try, a 60 days of our highest level plan, super valuable. You could use it across your company, your 10-person or 1,000-person company. So it can be worth a lot. And it's super simple to get. So what we've done is we've created a URL. So it's just fellow.ai/bright. And if you go there, you can sign up and you'll get 60 days of Fellow to give it a try for yourselves. And if you have feedback, shoot me a note. I'm on LinkedIn or I'm on Twitter or X. And would love to hear what you think.
That was Aydin Mirzaee, CEO at Fellow AI.